everyone, and welcome back to my channel. This is Erica from Confessions of a Homeschooler, and today I'm going to share my top 5 reading curriculum picks with you. So we've been doing this series, and one of my favorite things is reading, and I think trying to choose a reading curriculum at the beginning seemed kind of a little bit scary to me because I just wanted to make sure I had the best curriculum that was going to inspire and encourage and teach my kiddos to read the best that they possibly could. Another one of my goals was to create a love of reading. I didn't want my kids to hate reading and, oh, I've got to do reading, and I think that's fairly common amongst younger kids. So if you have a younger student who really just dislikes reading, hopefully some of my curriculum picks today will help you, and we'll kind of talk about why I think they're good for people who don't necessarily love reading. They're also good for people who do love reading. So let's go ahead and just dive right in. So I'm gonna do these in no particular order, just kind of things that we have used over the years, what we've liked and disliked about them, and then hopefully that will help you guys when you are searching for a good reading curriculum for your family. So right off the bat, I'm just gonna start with the basic, kind of more traditional type reading curriculum. And for us, that is Abeka or BJU Press. They're both very similar. Becca has, this is I believe our 3rd grade. I have these kind of out because my daughter is doing 3rd grade, and it comes with this whole little set of books, and then they also have a teacher's manual. And to be perfectly honest with you, I don't actually use this a whole lot. If you can just find the book list used somewhere, that's probably going to be your best bet. And then let's see here, I'll kind of do it up close so you can kind of see. They basically give you an assignment, and then there's questions that go along with it and that kind of thing. Which is great because one of the goals of reading is comprehension. You want your students to be able to read and comprehend and remember what they're reading and all of that kind of thing. So Abeka is really good for that, I have found, for the younger grades. I tend to like how they teach phonics, and so especially when you're in kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd grade, their readers are really good. They're right on grade level. In the books themselves, at the end of each chapter, let's see if I can find one. Here we go. At the end of each reading assignment, there's a think about it section with questions. And so your student just can, go through those questions. And if you have the answer key or the teacher's manual, the answers to those questions are in here. If you don't, I have found, at least for the younger grades, it's fairly easy for me to just flip through. It's usually only a few pages of reading. So I can flip through the book really quickly and then just help her answer the questions without the teacher's manual. So totally up to you if you want to save some money on this curriculum. I would definitely, think that you could probably get away without doing the teacher's manual. And then how I assign it out is I just do 1 chapter every day from, whichever level book they're in. And for Abeka, they're ordered, it's like 3-1, 3-2, 3-3, 3-4, and you just read them in sequence. And of course, they gradually get harder as you go through the sequence of books. One suggestion on saving money on Abeka: try and find these readers used. They're all over the place. You can look on eBay. I have a buy, sell, trade section on my website, my community, that you can look for these books. You can also sell your used books if you have them as well. And I think Homeschool Classifieds is another place, although I've had not as good of luck finding things on that website in the past several years. I don't know if it's, kind of dwindling down or what. But anyways, this is a fairly standard, traditional, kind of what they'd be doing if they were in school type of reading curriculum. The next one that I mentioned kind of with this was BJU Press, and it's very similar. I don't have it here to show you because we haven't used it for a few years, and so I've sold it or given it away, but it's basically the same. It comes with a teacher's manual. There's activities, like an activity workbook that goes with it. And so your student would be reading a section of text, answering some questions on a worksheet or whatever. There's also like a kind of a little lesson you can do with it in the teacher's manual. It's very similar to the Abeka reading, except for instead of having individual readers, the readers come in like kind of just one big textbook, and then there's just several stories in that one book. So again, I would suggest trying to find those used. Just make sure that whatever edition you're getting of the student reader, you're also having the same edition of the teacher's manual and the workbook, or otherwise they won't go together. So that's the only thing with BJU Press, but it's very similar to Abeka. I enjoyed it. It was, again, a very traditional kind of assignment-driven reading curriculum. I think it's fine for younger readers. They just read a passage, answer questions, do a worksheet, fairly straightforward. So both of those are really, I think, pretty solid reading curriculum if you're looking for something more traditional. I would say the main thing I don't love about them would possibly be cost. They both are a little bit more expensive because there's so many, you know, just BJU in general is a little bit more pricey than Abeka, and you know, so it's up to you. The other thing with that is I didn't love having to do an additional worksheet on top of reading, because I feel like reading is sort of the assignment on its own, and then for your student to have to read plus do another worksheet when they're probably already doing a lot of worksheets, it seemed like a little bit of overkill, like let's pile on another worksheet, and I just didn't feel like we needed to do that. But if your student needs extra work, then you might actually appreciate that aspect of BJU. The other thing you can do, and I did this really, is we just skipped the worksheets. We did the reading assignments, we did the questions afterward. The question and answers are all in the teacher's manual for BJU text, so if you want those answers, it's good to get a hold of the teacher's manual. And then we just skipped the workbook. We just didn't do the lessons in there, and honestly it was fine. I felt like we were doing enough other, you know, English, grammar type things that I just didn't want to pile on another worksheet onto my students. But the option's there if you're looking for it. So we did like both of those curriculums. They're both very solid, both very traditional. All right, the next one that I want to mention is All About Reading. And it kind of looks, there's a lot to hold up, so I'm gonna hold them up in sections. So there is a teacher's manual, and then there's a student workbook, and the student workbook might look a little intense, but it's not like worksheets. It's got a lot of cutout kind of activities for your kids to do. There's a lot of, you know, word matching and kind of game playing and coloring, and it's a lot. It's not like a standard answer these questions type worksheet. Here's a good example. So here's like a little kind of game board, and it says true or false down here by this birdie. And then on the next page, there's all these little seeds, and on the back of them, there's questions. So I think the first, let's see, a parakeet is a fish, a parakeet is a bird, cherries are blue, cherries are red. And so they have to read those and then put them in the correct section on your little game board here. And so it's more games. So this looks like really intense, but it's more of cutting out stuff and making games and then playing the games, which are all encouraging reading. And they're a lot of fun. And then they have these word flips that you can kind of match up. And so those are kind of fun, and then it's just a more hands-on kind of game type approach to practicing phonics and reading versus like a sit-down type worksheet. So don't be intimidated by the activity book. It really is more activities versus worksheets. So, and then there's review and things like that in here. For this, you do need the teacher's manual for this one. You can't really get away without it, I don't think. I mean, I suppose, I'm not even sure if you can purchase them separately, but if you could purchase the readers, I suppose you could just go through and read them. But there really are daily lesson plans to do for the reading. You do a lot of hands-on work, so you do need the teacher's manual for this one. And it's very similar to their All About Spelling program, if you're at all familiar with that. As a matter of fact, it comes with its own sheet of letter tiles, and then it also, that's like in addition to the basic kind of phonics letter tiles that you would get from them. It's also got word sound cards and then word practice cards as well. So whole pile of stuff comes with this curriculum. And then I told you there was a lot to hold up, so I'm trying to get it all here. And then it also has readers. So these are the level 4 readers. There's only 2 readers, and then in each book there are several stories. And then so the inside of the books are black and white, but the illustrations are really fun. And one thing that I will say about this curriculum is that it moves slightly slower than maybe the Abeka or the BJU Press. However, my kids, all of them, loved these readers. They were really fun stories. I thought they might prefer like the Abeka or BJU readers because they're in color. There's like, you know, color pictures in there, but they all preferred these stories. They loved the stories. I don't know if it was, you know, I'm assuming it was the content, because, and the illustrations are really fun as well. But the other thing, kind of the flip side of this, is we actually went through this curriculum faster than the others. And so we got through this within the first half of the year. We kind of sped through the lessons a little bit more. Some days we would just do the reading, and then some days we would do the lessons. Mainly because I felt like my student was a little bit ahead of the game on the reading front, and they were just a little bit on the easy side for her. And so I think that we did the fourth grade, or the level 4, they're not really graded. We did the level 4 readers with her at the beginning of 3rd grade last year, and she breezed right through them. And so I do think that maybe if you have a struggling reader or someone who's a little more intimidated by reading, this probably would be a better solution for you than something like Abeka and BJU Press, because those move quite quickly. They're definitely more kind of traditional structured lessons and whatnot. These are a lot more hands-on lessons. You're playing games, you're practicing, you know, little flip charts, and it encourages reading, I think, on a more hands-on level, which is definitely better for struggling readers. And then, like I said, the stories are phenomenal. They're super cute. We loved all of them, and I just love these books in general and like to have them in our library. So we really did like All About Reading quite a bit. The next one, and this is going to kind of get into a little bit older kids now, the next one I want to mention is Bookshark. And so Bookshark is something that we have done here for the last, I want to say 3 years, maybe even 4 now, with my older students. And a couple things about Bookshark. It's a classic literature curriculum, and it's actually not just like a reading curriculum. It's more of it includes language arts. You can get a history or science track that kind of comes in like a big kit. And so the lesson plans cover language, the literature, and some history with it. And so I never personally did all of the lesson plan that, you know, like it lays out like that, like as a big box set. We just simply took the readers out of it and used those and put them in our library, and then I let my kids pull out whatever book they wanted from that. And then in the Bookshark curriculum, there is comprehension questions for everything that they're reading and whatnot. Sometimes the questions seemed a little bit on the easy side to me, and there really weren't very many questions, so I didn't love that, but I liked the book selection. And so I like having that book library in, just letting our kids go and choose from that, and then I can kind of look online or draw my own questions or whatever from that. So, and then I would still use the curriculum. One thing I want to say about Bookshark is that it is very expensive, kind of like Sunlight and other book heavy curriculum. You're paying for the cost of all of those books. So if there is anywhere that you can find the book list, a lot of times like Sunlight will put their book list online, and I think Bookshark might even also have their book list online. If you could just take that book list and head to your local library and get some books off of it each week, that would probably also be a good way to go, because like I said, it's quite pricey for you to purchase the curriculum. I don't have the price on me right now. I just remember it was like a few $100s, which seemed like, I mean, it does include other subjects, but it just seemed a little on the heavy side, and especially since we weren't using any of that other stuff, we were just using the books, I probably wouldn't go out and buy it. We participate in a once-a-week options program through our local school district. The kids go there and they take a variety of classes. One of the perks to being part of that is that we can check out and borrow curriculum for our year for free. And so Bookshark is just one of those things that we can borrow, and so we borrowed the kit through options, so it was totally free for us to have those books. If I didn't do that, I probably would not go out and purchase it. I'd probably go online, try and find the book list, and then just head to the library and get what I could off of that and use that as my reading for the year. Yeah, that's one option. I did quickly mention Sunlight. We haven't ever used Sunlight, but if you are into reading and you want to really encourage reading, it is a reading heavy curriculum full of books. And you can also find their reading list by grade online, which is another good cheap option. You can just get their book list and then again head to your library and use those for whatever grade you're in. So 2 good kind of less expensive ways to use those curriculum. The last curriculum that I want to talk about is my literature units, and we use mostly the classic starts, but I've also have a selection of books in there that are the original versions, and then I'm starting to work on a junior, like middle school, junior high kind of type level of books as well, which are all the originals. When you go on my website, and I'll put a link for all of these below, it will tell you in there which version of the book, and there's usually a link to Amazon or whatever, so you can see exactly which one I'm talking about. You can then go get that book from your library, or if you want it in your home library, you can purchase it, or you know, maybe you already have it, who knows. I have probably over 40, I think, definitely over 40 literature units for you to pick from, and I have a review on them on my channel, so you can go check all of those out. I'll put a link. I think I have a playlist for them. You can also just look on my blog or in my store. But essentially what it is you need to get a hold of whatever book you choose. There's, like I said, a bunch of them. You can also buy them in bundles, and if you buy more than one, you can get discounts and things like that. But you need to get a hold of the book. It does not come with the book itself. And then what the download does come with is daily lesson plans. It comes with comprehension questions, answers to those in your teacher's manual and all of that. So as your students are reading through whatever chapter, you can ask them questions when they're done. That way you know that they read them and understand them, and you know, all of that kind of comprehension type stuff. It also comes with lap book pages, so you can create a lap book with little mini books. Comprehension questions can go in there. Some of them are activities. Anything from my volume 1 literature units are better for probably younger kids. They have more activities than comprehension questions. So Charlotte's Web, they build spider webs, and you know, they do lots of fun activities that kind of go along with that. Same with Little House on the Prairie. There's activities and recipes that go along with the lap book, and so that just makes the reading unit, I think, a little bit more fun and engaging for them. And the other thing I want to say on that is that because it's not like a lesson 1 through 172 or whatever, kind of like the Abeka or BJU is, and then how we do it is I just let my kids pick whichever book they are interested in reading at that time, and they go through it. I have the lesson plans for it, and then I can just ask them questions. And one thing that I really like doing about that, and one thing that I really like about doing it that way is that it kind of is putting the interest level onto your student. And so just by giving them the freedom of choosing what they want to read about, not only does it make them more engaged with that book, they want it, they chose it, it's something they want to read. I don't know if you've ever sat down and tried to read a book that you didn't want to read, but it's kind of brutal and it's hard to get into, and a lot of times it's just a struggle, and it's not something it's like you're just doing it because maybe it's an assignment your teacher gave you, and you know, you sort of hate your way all the way through it. And one of the things that's really important to me, along with reading comprehension and fluency and all of those things, is also to create a love of reading in my students. I want them to enjoy reading. I want them to want to go to the library and find books that interest them and learn about things through reading. And so one of the things that I found once we got past the initial teaching them how to read stage was that they didn't like reading. And I thought, man, I'm probably the only homeschooler on the planet whose kids don't actually like to read. What's going on? And so I went through, and my husband and I talked about it, and I was like, you know, I don't like reading things that I'm not interested in either. I'm like, what if we just change it up this year? I'm not worried about their fluency. They're great readers. I'm not worried about their comprehension. They've been doing great on that aspect. I'm like, what if we just head to the library this year and start picking out books that look fun and interesting, but are still kind of classics? So all of my classic literature units are all books that, you know, they should have read probably anyways. Wind in the Willows, you know, Little House on the Prairie, all of those kinds of things. I've got Narnia books. There's a ton. You can go look them all up. But they're all like kind of classic literature that you would want your kiddos to read anyways. But by letting them have the control over what they're reading and when they're reading it, and oh, I feel like reading this book this time, you know, I'm gonna do that, it really actually engages them. And one of the things that I've found is that now that they are having more control over what they're reading, they love it. They love reading. We go to the library all the time. They pick out a ton of different books. Sometimes they pick out like encyclopedia or how-to type books. Sometimes they pick out, you know, just novel type books. And they kind of run the gamut now. And so it's really instilled just a love of reading in them. Most of them read at night before they go to bed now. They have their own kind of fun books they do on the side. They've got my literature units that we do during school. And so we're just doing a lot more reading and just promoting that in a more positive way than it just being another assignment with another worksheet with more questions, you know, and making it from something that was kind of like a drudgery type of experience to something that they enjoy and that they've chosen and that they're like invested in, and they start loving these stories. And I think it's really instilled a love of learning, in my opinion. And so how I kind of approach reading now is when they're younger, you know, preschool, kindergarten, first grade or so, right in that, like, you know, kind of we're still learning how to sound out words and just becoming fluent in reading. I stick to maybe the more traditional, you know, like a Becca or something like that, where I can make sure, like, okay, we're reading okay, we're understanding the phonics of this all, we've remembered what we've read, something that has, you know, some questions and the answers with it and that kind of thing, just so I can make sure that we've got a good foundation. And then if I feel like they're doing well in second grade or sometimes third, then I just kind of open it up to them and we start doing my literature units, and they can just pick whatever they want. I've even let them go into the library and they just pick a book that they want that I don't have a unit for, and I'll just skim the chapter real quick. It's easy for the younger readers, and just skim the chapter really quick, and then I'll just ask them some questions off of there to make sure that they're doing okay. I usually will still have them read their chapter aloud to me until they're a little bit older, just so that I know that they've done it and that I can hear them fluently reading and we're still doing well. I just don't think it's as big of a deal to stick with something super formal once you know that they're reading well. I think I prefer just creating that love of learning and learning through reading with them, and that's just kind of my personal opinion and how we do it. All of my kids at this point are excellent readers. They love it. They get books, you know, nonstop from the library, and I think that it's really accomplished what I'm after. But I have a whole thing on making reading fun video on my website, and so I'll link that below as well if you want to look at kind of a reading incentives and how to help if you have a struggling reader or someone who just doesn't like to read. That's kind of a fun way to get them into the groove and actually have them enjoy reading and learning. So there's that. The last thing I quickly wanted to mention, I know I said my top five reading curriculum. This isn't really a full curriculum, but one thing I do like to add in, especially, and I think they go up to 6th grade, are the Abeka Read and Think skill sheets. And these are basically timed reading tests, and they're super fast. It's like 4 to 5 minute tests, and it tells you on the top of each one, and I'll kind of show you here. But it tells you on the top how long to set your timer for, and then your student reads this selection, and then on the back of that they have some answers that they have to fill out, and they have to obviously read and answer those questions in the 4 or 5 minutes, whatever it tells you to do on here. One of the reasons that I love doing this, and so we're doing this for my 3rd grader right now, so she reads every day of the week through, she's going through my literature units right now, and then on Fridays only she takes one of these little reading tests. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One, I want to just kind of enforce that reading and comprehension. The other thing that these do is they really help out when you start doing standardized testing, and your kids are having to do a timed reading test where they're having these questions. The first year that my oldest student had to do that, she completely panicked. She didn't know if she could do it all in the amount of time she was given, and she kind of flubbed it, even though she is an amazing reader. She's an excellent reader, and I knew that, but she didn't do very well on that section of the test. And it was just her nerves, honestly. She was just afraid. She didn't, you know, the timing kind of scared her, it overwhelmed her. And so just doing these, we make them fun. They have their own timer. They're in charge of setting it, and they usually just say, hey mom, I'm gonna start my reading test now, and I'm like, okay, cool. I hear them set their timer, and then they go through and do it all, and then 9 times out of 10 they finish before the timer ever even goes off. So they learn that the timing is, they're given ample time, it's not stressful, and then they just go ahead and learn to, you know, that they've got to be able to answer questions off of what they've read, and that tremendously helped with just calming nerves when it came time to test taking. And so I think these are definitely a benefit. They have their place. There's only I think 30 or so. Yeah, there's 30 of them in here. So that's basically enough to do once a week. So they're not overwhelming, and they're an easy read day for the kids because it's like you know, 4 or 5 minutes. They go through it really quickly, and then they don't maybe have to do their reading that day. And so I haven't had any complaints out of anyone having to do these. I think they're kind of fun, and like I said, they really help with test taking. So I do add this into whatever reading curriculum I'm doing, just so that they kind of get that experience and get used to doing a timed kind of reading test, because that's on pretty much every standardized test that your students may have to take. So anyways, so that is, those are my top suggestions. Abeka, BJU for traditional, definitely helpful for younger students. All About Reading, if you have a struggling reader, they're really fun. Their readers are, you know, super fun stories, cute illustrations, and they're very hands-on. And then Book Shark for older students. I like the book selections, but again, a little overpriced. Get them at the library if you can. And then of course my literature units, lots of fun, lots of hands-on, not too overwhelming. And if you have older students who don't want to do the lap book, totally fine. Just ask them the questions out of the teacher's manual and you've got your reading comprehension. And then they have stories that they chose and liked and picked out and were just kind of classic literature anyway. So, and then the reading things skill sheets. So those are my top suggestions for reading curriculum. If you have any suggestions below, please make sure to leave it in the comment section below. Maybe list your pros and cons for it, why you like it or maybe dislike it. And that way everybody can kind of learn from each other. I certainly didn't mention every reading curriculum out there for sure. So I know others would probably like to learn from you as well. So those are my top picks. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it helped inspire you and encourage you to get researching the best curriculum for your family and your students. Thank you so much for watching with me today, and I will see you next time.